Chapter 10. The Valley. Black mounds coat the long series of steps that lead up to the temple. I've never seen so many of them laid out in one place. Historically, people have always turned to religion in times of fear and death. It seems the Reds are no different. And it seems it did them about as much good as it did for anyone else. The temple's doors are tall and solid and locked. I'd knock, but I imagine nobody's home. Nobody but my red friend. I've no idea how he got in, if he got in. These doors are sealed tight, and they don't have the big obvious keyhole symbol in the centre, which means they're automated, and there's no power to run them. That, or there's something else that my mind doesn't know about, keeping them shut. I'm starting to wonder if the cleric was headed here all along, even before I met him. Seems like too much of a coincidence that we ended up here otherwise. It also stands to reason that he'd know another way in if he knew these doors would be sealed. A high pile of debris is blocking the route along the temple's front to my left. He wouldn't have had time to scale that before I got here. Right it is then. It takes me a few minutes to find the old entranceway tucked in between some large jutting buttresses. Unlike the big doors on the front of the temple, this one is small and ornate, more a gate than a door. If it once had some kind of lock keeping it shut, it doesn't anymore. It swings in the warming breeze, and I can see a dark tunnel beyond it leading right into the big structure. There are no more entrances that I can see along this part of the building. This has to be where the cleric went in, so it's where I'm going in too. Once in, I walk along the musty tunnel. Its walls are close, and they feel like rough stone. The ceiling of the tight passage hangs low just above my head. I follow the winding path revealed by the bright beam of my tack light. The place smells of damp, or at least it seems to. After a while, the ground under my feet begins to feel soft and earthy, not like the hard, cracked and dead ground that's the only type to be found outside. Soon I come to a fork. Ahead, one path leads down, and another goes up. Taking the high ground is always a good strategy. I head up. I stalk along the narrow passageway until suddenly I realise there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Literally. For a moment I can think I hear voices too, muffled and far off, but definitely there. I flick off my light and proceed with the glow ahead of me as my only guide, moving cautiously so as not to trip in the dark or plummet down some unseen hole. I keep my footfalls as quiet as I can and my pistol ready in my hand. It's not long till I'm out of the tunnel and confused about where I've ended up. I'm stood on some sort of natural ledge jutting out from a steeply rolling hill. There's grass under my feet, or at least it looks like grass. On closer inspection, I'd be willing to bet that every single strand looks exactly the same. I seem to be high up, overlooking a picturesque valley, complete with a gently flowing river running along the entire length of its broad floor. There are copses of small trees dotted around the flat of the valley and clinging to its slopes, but a large formation of tall, dark trees seems to command this entire strange little world from its very centre. Even the river seems not to touch them, vanishing into the darkness created by the shadow of the trees and emerging again where they allow it to on the other side. In the distance, the river seems to disappear over rolling hills in both directions for miles. I could tell from outside that the temple was a big structure, but there's no way it was as big as it seems in here. This must be some sort of trick of the mind. It's trying to make sense of something that it can't understand. I can feel the warmth of the sun, not the damaging, driving heat of the real world outside, but the relaxing radiance of a pleasant summer's day. I can see the sun's light too, and almost imagine it pulsing on my skin. It illuminates everything around me and below me, and when I look up, there's no sun in the sky. There is a sky though. It starts from the horizon and hovers over everything in a perfect azure blue, but hover is the right word for it. Something about the sky is wrong, and not just the absence of the sun. There are no clouds in it for one. There's nothing up there at all, in fact, except the endless blue. But the strangest part is that it feels too close, as if I could reach up and touch it, if only I had a ladder that was tall enough. Either way, the light and warmth aren't coming from there, and I've no idea where they are coming from. A big part of me doesn't care where they're coming from. They just are, and that's enough. I stare up at the sky, with a smile on my face. I feel content. I almost want to lie down here in the grass and sleep, like a child, or a man with no worries in the world. The voices come again, louder this time, angrier, like they're arguing about something. I remember I've got plenty of worries in this world after all. Snapping out of my reverie, I drop low and peer out over my ledge. I was wrong earlier about this place being empty. Somebody is home, and not just the cleric from the sound of it. He must have friends. After a few more moments, the voices cease, and their owners start to appear from a tunnel almost directly below me, dug into the sloping grass like the entrance of a rabbit warren. I count them as they emerge in an evenly spaced single file and begin to slowly march down the hill. The final tally is 3. They're all reds, but the strangest part is that they're all clerics too. They're wearing the same white robes and hat as the cleric who revealed himself to me, same beards and chains too. That's not all they have in common either. Each one is carrying a small, black box. They're holding them out in front of themselves in stiffly extended left arms. The one in the lead also has a rifle in his right hand, the man to watch then. The second seems to have no weapon at all, and the one at the black sports what seems to be a long curved sword on his hip. I've never seen that before, but then this has been a day of firsts. As I watch, I wonder which of the 3 is my cleric, and then I wonder why I wonder or care. Generally, I wonder what I'm doing here. Did I come here chasing the cleric because he ran? Because he pushed me and I was pissed off? All of a sudden I have a strong feeling that I came here to kill him just because he's the bad guy. As simple as that and nothing more complex. Well, now he's got some bad guy friends, so I guess they need to die too. Why? Because I'm the good guy. As simple as that. I've had plenty of time to do all this thinking since the little procession is taking its sweet time walking down to the valley's wide floor. They're in no rush at all, in fact. All 3 clerics are marching in unison, step by step, just like soldiers. I'm a little concerned at this. Surely my cleric has told the other 2, hey, there's an angry human with a gun on my tail. Maybe we should, kill him before we take our morning walk? Yes? Then I start to realise that maybe my cleric isn't one of these 3 at all. Just then one of them, the second in line, glances back over his shoulder and scans the hillsides around the valley. It's him. I don't know how I know, but I know. My cleric. Why in the hell are you doing this little slow march? You must know you didn't lose me back in the city. For some reason, the group suddenly stops. They're about 2/3 of the way from their rabbit hole to the centre of the valley and the great trees gathered there. In unison, all 3 of the clerics raise their boxes up high over their heads. They're a good way off from me now, but I can hear that they're chanting something. As I watch, I feel a line of sweat trickle down my forehead. It runs around my eyebrow and stings the side of my eye. As I wipe it away, I realise I'm starting to sweat all over. It's like someone's turning up the heat in here. I look up at the strange sky above me, and it looks even closer and more vivid than it did when I looked up before. I swear I can feel the invisible sun up there beating harder and faster than before, its radiating pulse starting to race. Down in the valley, the chanting stops, and the sudden silence brings my focus back on the clerics. They all reach up and open the lids of their boxes as one. Each of them draws out a long object that looks like a short metallic cylinder. The cylinders are far too big to have actually fit in the boxes, but I know that doesn't matter here. For a second I wonder if they're weapons. They look like smaller versions of the cannon, but this seems like a lot of effort for a few guns. I pull my AK off my back so I can take a closer look through the scope. As I bring it to my eye and switch off all the enhancements except the zoom, I realise that I know what they're holding because I've seen them somewhere before, but never in person. They're data storage rods. As soon as I see this, I shrug off my heavy pack and drop it on the ground. Then in one leap I'm over the ledge in front of me and falling onto the steep slope below. As soon as I'm back on my feet, I sprint headlong towards the valley floor and the clerics, and I don't know why. I have to have those data rods, and I don't know why. I will have them. So I sprint as hard and as fast as I can, almost tripping and stumbling forward with every other stride. I have my empty AK in one hand and my loaded pistol in the other, and I know that any minute now the small group that I'm steadily closing on will turn and see me. What will they do then? Fall down with the holes I've put in them, I hope. Then I'll have the rods. I'm halfway to them when the one at the rear hears me, or hears something, and turns. He sees me and alerts the others. I don't stop running. Head bobbing up and down as I sprint, I watch them through the jolting blur as I close the ground on them. They open their little black boxes, and the one in the lead, the one with the rifle, returns his storage rod to its box and hands it to the other two. I don't stop running. He seems to be shouting at the others and pointing to the trees, directing them to head that way. They pack up their storage rods too, and leave him there staring at me as they walk on, more hurried now, finally about the business with some purpose. I don't stop running. The cleric with the rifle pulls it into his shoulder, takes aim at me, and fires off a few rounds in my direction. The first volley misses by a long way. I hear the rounds hit home into some trees behind me and to the left. I don't stop running. He adjusts his aim as I close. The second volley thuds into the turf just in front of me. I have to blink away the debris that jumps up and sprays into my face. And I don't stop running. The next volley comes so close that I can hear one of the rounds as it whistles past my ear. Time to stop running. I raise my pistol up and put a couple of rounds of my own into the air in the cleric's direction. At 40 meters off, firing with one hand and breathing hard, I know I'm not going to hit him, but his reaction as he drops to the floor confirms what his early attempts to shoot me suggested. He's no soldier. Before he gets back up, I dive into the nearest group of trees to my right and stay low. It's generally not a good idea to lose sight of your opponent in any fight, but I have a feeling that I know what he'll do. Sure enough, leaves and branches rain down on my head when the cleric decides that if he lights up every tree I might be hiding behind, he'll get me eventually. I'm not behind the trees. I crawl forward through the undergrowth in the general direction of the shooting, trying to count the number of rounds he's fired as I go. There's no way to be precise, but I'm guessing he's put down at least 50 or more when it all goes silent. That's what I've been waiting for. Before he has a chance to reload, I stand up quickly and scan for my target. He's right there in front of me, 10 meters away and trying to look quickly at everything in front of him at once. I've got a clear line of sight with no trees between us. As I take aim, he sees me and points his rifle in my direction. I squeeze my trigger. 1, 2, 3, and the rounds rip through his body. 1, 2, 3. He squeezes his trigger too, and a final burst of fire from his rifle murders some bushes off to my left. Not his time to reload after all, but not a problem. I still win. As his black corpse drops to the grass, something in the world around me changes. The unexplained light that permeates everything seems to dim, and the air cools as a strong wind picks up. A gust hits me in the back and rocks me like I've been pushed. I even turn to check nobody's there behind me. I'm suddenly aware of the sound of running water. When I look back towards the big group of trees ahead of me, not too far away now, I see that the gentle flow of the valley's river has picked up. White froth dances across its rolling surface. Suddenly the sky turns from that beautiful blue to a light grey, and as I look up, I feel the first drops of rain hit my face. It's the first rain I've felt in as long as I can remember. Part of me wants to enjoy the sensation, but there's an ominous feeling in the air, like this place knows I'm here now, and it's not happy about the intrusion. Besides, I've got business to be about. As I bend to pick up the empty AK, you never know, I hear the distant rumble of thunder. By the time I finally make it near the edge of the tree line, the wind is howling and carrying an increasingly heavier rainfall. Little needles sting my face as the wind tries to rock me off my feet. This place doesn't just feel unhappy now, it feels angry at me. I crouch low just a few meters from the perfect line formed by the big trees and double check my pistol. All good. I try to look into the chunk of woodland before me, but the shadows there at its edge are unnaturally black. I can't see anything past the first few trunks. I try to listen too, but I can barely hear anything above the howl of the wind. Screw it. Grasp the nettle and all that, plus speed, surprise, violence and all the rest. I get back on my feet and sprint the last of the way to get into cover and out of the growing monsoon. Just before I get there, something hits me in the chest. Hard. I'm back where I was crouched a few seconds ago, but this time I'm lying down. That's not the only change. My pistol is not in my hand anymore. Looking down and wiping the rain from my eyes, I realise that, wherever it is, it's not in reach. Problem number 1. Problem number 2 presents itself as I look back at the trees and see another cleric standing there in just the spot where I took the hit. He shakes his hand off to one side and clenches it a few times to make sure he didn't damage it when he drove it into me. I'm expecting some kind of threat, taunt or other human-like gesture, but this cleric is all business. On his hip is a sword, long and curved like a scimitar. It looks almost mythical as he draws it slowly, and I watch the rain dance on the blade. With his other hand he reaches up and takes off his gold chain. In an instant, he's just a red again, just a soldier again. He points the tip of the sword at me and then, with no words and no dramatic gestures, he's rushing towards me with the sword held high in one hand. I'm quickly back up into a crouch as he chops the blade down towards my head. I barely manage to lift the AK up above me in time to deflect the blow. It does the job, but only just. The weight of his swing drives the heavy rifle into my head, and I see a nice white light as I tumble backwards. This time I roll out and get to my feet. It's a good job too, as he follows the first swing with a strong thrust that would have skewered me into the floor if I'd still been there. He comes at me again as I regain my feet. I step back as he throws out a few tentative thrusts, using the blade like a rapier as he lunges towards my chest and gut. Then he turns one of those thrusts into a horizontal swing for my head. Instead of ducking and losing balance, I bring the AK up, holding it in both hands this time, one on the barrel and one on the stock. I manage to stop the stroke easily, so he tries one from another side. I stop it again, but this time he lets his blade run its course as it's deflected downwards, and I feel a sharp pain as it cuts across the back of my hand. I'm forced to dance away backward as he tries again for my head, and only just misses. I'm sure I remember that the safest place to be when someone swings something sharp or heavy at you is as far away as possible. Failing that, being as close as possible is the next best thing. As the cleric draws his arm back for another swing, I rush in at him and shove the side of the AK hard at his face. He ducks under my clumsy attack with ease and draws his blade across my midsection as he steps past me and we turn again to face each other. I take a quick look down and see that a piece of my shirt is hanging loose, and the pain that's just starting to blossom across my stomach lets me know he cut me. But the fact that I'm still standing tells me it can't be too bad. Or maybe that's just the adrenaline talking. I'm going to fall down dead in a minute. That's still 60 seconds to take this fucker with me. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to pull that off though, and the cleric's not too keen to let me think about another good strategy either. He moves in again, and I hold my rifle out to the side, ready to swing it like a bat. As he closes, I swing. I miss. I feel a sharp pain as the tip of his sword catches me in the thigh. Just a testing thrust. I swing again, and miss again. This time his blade scores along one of my ribs. He has his range now. I throw one more tired swing. I miss badly again. The cleric steps in and thrusts with his full weight to spill my bowels across the grass. But I'm not as tired as he thinks. I shift my momentum and drive the AK down into the top of the oncoming blade, close to the cleric's hands, and step off to the side. His force combined with mine is enough to drive the sword right down into the earth. That gives me enough time to imagine his red head as a little white ball, and to imagine the roar of the wind as a crowd calling for a home run. I swing the rifle like a bat and connect hard just under his chin. The horrible crack that it makes even sounds like a bat slugging a fastball, but instead of flying into the air, the cleric crumples onto the floor and rolls onto his back. I stand over him and look down at his red face with the deformed mess of a gurgling jaw. I hold the AK like a bat again, both hands on the barrel, and send it swinging down into his skull. Swing, crack, red, swing, crack, red, swing, crack, black. And that's the end of that. The scoreboard for this game would read me 2, clerics 0. Time to end this thing and make it 3-0. I quickly check my wounds and realise that none of them have done any serious damage. Nothing serious enough to stop me now at least. Not with the combination of adrenaline and mental conditioning working on my side. I drop the slightly twisted AK on the floor. The rain drives down and starts to wash the blood from it. I pick up the sword that's still stuck in the ground and swaying in the wind. As I pull it free, the gust takes me off my feet, literally this time, and deposits me a little way away. I have to grip tight to keep hold of the sword as I land. I point it up to the charcoal grey sky that now seems just out of reach, looming down on me and doing its best to scare me. I don't scare easy. "Did you like that?" I shout up at it. I'm not expecting an answer, but I take the next gust of wind that drops me onto the floor as a no. I clamber to my feet and drive against the storm as I finally reach the strange trees in the centre of the valley. "Then you probably won't like what I do next," I yell as I step through the black barrier of shadows.